We bring to you another episode in our Doorway to Sindh webinar series brought to you by Sindhi Culture Foundation and the Embassy Group, providing you a glimpse of Sindhi history and culture. I am Aruna Madnani, a proud Sindhi.
My name is Trisha Lalchandani, and I'm here to moderate the discussion today on Banbhore. We have three excellent speakers who've been working in the field for many, many years, and we'll be talking to them today. Let me introduce the speakers before we move on to the talk. Professor Valeria Piacentini is director at the Athenaeum Center CRISMA, scientific director of Italian Archaeological Mission at Banbhore. She is former professor of history and institutions of the Muslim world, faculty of political and social sciences, Catholic University of the Sacred Heart, Milan. Between 1987 and 2006, she was director of historical, archaeological, anthropological research in Balochistan under the patronage of the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Her recent publications include Beyond Ibn Hakwal's Behr al-Fars, 10th to 13th centuries AD, Sindh and the Kiju Makran region, 2014, Balochistan, Terra Incognita, 2003, Merchants, Merchandise and Military Power in the Persian Gulf, 1992. We welcome you, Professor Piacentini. Dr. Kalimullah Lashari is an archaeologist, historian, and author. In March 2019, the government of Pakistan awarded him the Sitara-e-Imtiaz, the third highest honor and civilian award in Pakistan. He works to preserve physical heritage in the region. His recent publications include Epigraphy of Makli, 2018, Something of Past, 2017, and 1983, a collection of Sindhi short stories, 1999. He has also collaborated in foreign missions, including with the Italian Historical and Archaeological Mission between 1986 and 87, and he has been the co-coordinator of the Pakistan, Italian, and French Joint Archaeological Mission to Banbhore from 2019 to present. Welcome, Dr. Lashari. Dr. Asma Ibrahim is an archaeologist, museologist, and researcher. She served in the Department of Archaeology and Museums from 1990 till 2006, donning various hats as curator, director, assistant curator. She's carried out several excavations in Balochistan and Sindh and the Indus Delta region. She's currently working as director, Joint Archaeological Mission, Pakistan, Italian, and French since 2011. Her recent publications include Readapting of Heritage Building as First Monetary Museum, Imperial Bank of India, 2019, Walking with the Unicorn, Social Organization and Material Culture in Ancient South Asia, an essay published in 2018, The Murals of Dadu, 2000, and Recent Archaeological Discoveries in the Indus Delta, 1993. We welcome you, Dr. Ibrahim. Let's begin the discussion by talking about why Banbhore. Professor Valeria, how did you arrive at Banbhore here? Could you also lay down the framework, the context of what was going on in Banbhore, both historically and archaeologically, when you entered the field?
I arrived at Banbhore from Makran because in Makran we have no great harbor. We have even after the Hapam period, no harbors in Makran, no archaeological evidence of great harbors. So since Makran, but it was the land route, not the coastal area, was in some periods, historical periods, one of the major routes, trading routes between East and West. We wanted to have a look about where all these goods were going to. And one possibility was this Babul, question mark at the time, that had been excavated by F.A. Khan in the in the 50s of the previous century. And then after that, silence. Only Lashari and Asma had been working about it, preserving the site, investigating the site, but not really thorough and the archaeological park, because when we speak about Banbhore, we think only to the bastion at the citadel, which is impressive as a matter of fact, but it is only a part of the site because it is surrounded, and this is one of the great achievements of Dr. Lashari, but by at least, I say at least, 60, if not 70 acres of archaeological park that still needed to be completely investigated, thoroughly investigated. So we arrived to that site and we were impressed, me and my collaborators, of course, and there we talked about the site with both Lashari and Asma. And then we invited also Dr. Kevran, and she joined the group. It was the first time after F.A. Khan that systematic scientific research work could be resumed on that still unknown and blank area, because all Khan's notes went lost. We had only little scraps of information by Khan, but written sources, then we had Arabic, Tabari, Baladuri, or we have Greek and Latin authors. And so I decided that already Baladuri and Tabari had gone through very, as much as it was possible. Tabari is still an excellent source, as very excellent is still the Fatma Maya's Sindh, commented and translated by N.A. Baluch, the late N.A. Baluch, that was a great, great historian. And Asma, I hope that she still is carrying out the foundation. Well, Greek and Latin sources provided us with more information, little scraps of information, but confirming what they do confirm, what F.A. Khan has written in his booklet. He speaks about Saka, Sheet, Parthian. Well, yes, they were there. They were to a great harbor with the same connotations of what we have been capable of digging in Banbhore. In the deep trenches of Banbhore, the bastioned area. And the Saka were a confederation, and the Shiite were a group of that confederation, and they alternated the power. And power on Banbhore was not destructive, it was protective. In a way, they were settled in Sistan and had one foot on the Indus Deltaic region, and that foot was to protect the great harbor there and let trades go on. What means this? It is very important in my viewpoint, because to protect the trades meant not to destroy the site, but to have incomes coming in for them too. But the site could live its own life, and it would be now a great achievement if we could resume that research work. Because on the other side of the border, you have incredible sites there too. Some of them usually are presented even by Indian archaeologists, the SAS, Seminar for Arabian Studies, and also archaeometry. Archaeometry is really supporting now. Really supporting. We can't go on without archaeometry. Sciences are coming. Archaeology and history without archaeometry is a waste of time for both historians and archaeologists. So what they have discovered in your side is that glass, ivories, and pottery is coming from unknown place. not locally manufactured. So you can distinguish what is imported archaeometry and what is locally done. But for luxury goods, like jewelry, like ivory items, like glass, this is not local manufactured, but is imported. So if we have to look around, certainly there were very close connections with, the Indian side, very close connections between one and the other one. Through historical, I'm talking about historical phases, and these are very well registered by the migrations to Makran, and I'm going again to Makran, when other people, Rajputs origin, came down, and these people had to migrate and settled in Makran, our funerary areas, Lashari. Your marvelous book that I would like to show here. Multan played a central role, and in Multan, a precious work had been done and carried out as well by Monique, as she did work Sehwan Sharif, and unfortunately all this material, apart a small article, has gone lost. There was a Kushan kingdom. Kushan material has been found in Banbhore at least. A Kushan period, and the Kushan lords, when they were defeated, the last one, Kanishka, ran along the Indus River, and he arrived to Sehwan Sharif. And there was another Kushan Empire, Southern Kushan Empire. This is Tabari. Tabari is precious. And so he asked him protection against the Sasanian. And he said, okay, you can come in. You marry my daughter, and I will provide you with Dib, the harbor of Dib, Dib, as dowry. And so there he went, and he founded his own kingdom. So from Kushan III became Kushan I. Malik, I'm quoting, citing Tabari, of the kingdom of the bull. So it was a kingdom. When the Sasanian Ardashir arrived there around 225, he submitted, made oath of submission to Ardashir, and he left him as a vassal ruler in Daibul now we have. So what is that bull? What does it mean? We have a dib, and then we have a bull, and it could be two things. Bull as a pole, Iranian Sanskrit. This is your problem to work on it. Indo-Iranian, that means a bridge. And we have a bridge in Banbhore connecting the bastioned area with consolidated sand dunes eastward, where there are archaeological evidence there, all there around. Or might be polis, Greek. And here again we have Barbaricon, question mark, if it has to be polis. And in the Periplus, in Greek, we have the same Seleucid description of the site, Barbaricon and surrounding area, as we have still in the Sasanian period, preserved, and the Islamic period as well. Same place names and same also administrative circumscription. So this is very important, because from the text we arrive to very solid evidence that now we know what we have to look for.
One of the good things today is that we are there together, who have been involved in exploring Banbhore, because Banbhore is an important site. It is not only an archaeological site, but there are many correlations which require it to be connected through history. And Banbhore requires that it should be identified in one way or the other so that the changing landscape of the Indus lower delta has to be understood. We see that this part of world is one of the linkage, very important linkage in between the more important stations in Middle East, Persian Gulf, Red Sea, and then going to the east, it moves and passes the very important area of Kutch and then moves on to the west coast of India. And then it opens up opportunities for further poor bandars, the ports in the east. And there is series of poor bandars which have been actually identified by the mariners as the eastern port, but it went ahead and pushed far back, as we call Far East. So it went up to the Indonesian islands. So this is very important central position which Bambor had. And Bambor had another advantage that it provided a very safe sanctuary where many ships, smaller or larger size, could race without facing the roughness of sea. This was the place where they could be replenished, where they could get repaired, and where they were, while they were doing these necessary things, they also had the opportunity to make money. It was a very good trading area where the sea route was very much essentially connected with the land routes, which were going much deeper into the Central Asia. So it was uh, far more important a site than today one can perceive. So it has to be looked very seriously and very carefully to determine its character within the antiquity. As you know, Dr. Asma has been working on certain very focused areas such as the glass trade, and Valeria is one of the outstanding historians dealing with this history part of this region. And she has been associated with the Arab and Persian source material. And she has, to our good luck, found some good maps also from within the Italian collections. So this all material complements to the whole body of research which is there, and we all are looking at Bambor from that particular uh, point of vintage where we bring our expertise to this port and to determine how and where actually it stood in that particular moment of time. Asma's work on glass has to continue because it is another scientific area, and also
Yes.
she has pointed out very ably during last joint mission the uh, coins which were actually coming from two sources. One was the source itself of the Debil and Mansura, and another was from Multan, and the ratios which seemed very clearly to
Yes.
be very akin to the areas which were on the east of Multan. So this was a sort of very eye-opening and indicative area again for detailed focusing on this material as well. And I was very happy that we at the site were able to have a small setup of laboratory, which your brother was very systematically trying to attach to the work which was archaeologically being carried out there. And I must appreciate his patience and his forbearance with us. We, the people who were kept digging material out of that archaeological area, we started putting him many questions. So I see that there is this need that more focused and learned attempt is to be made to Bambor, because this is high time that the mystery of Bambor being missed in a way from the earlier works, the name itself. Uh, but we have to clearly see and connect the disconnect. And
Yes, sir.
as I was looking at the excavation material which F.A. Khan had dug, and it was the kind cooperation of Dr. Asma Ibrahim that she made herself and her staff available for 5 months long work on the part sherds, which were dug during the 7 year excavation of Epihal. And we were in a position to then recreate the missing evidence from the F.A. Khan's reports, because you were very clear and you mentioned that F.A. Khan's report is very small writer. And out of 7 years of excavation, if we have 16 pages of written report, that means that we are largely missing upon high work which might have and which must have taken place there, that much rigorous work the archaeologists had done are looking at the variety and quantum of the material which has been there on the site, the stores, and looking at the small museum which they have, a very well preserved select collection has been put there, which itself is indicative of what you have been confirming through your historical narratives. So we need to actually look further, go beyond the present layers, and then try to focus on the scientific aspects on the one hand, archaeological investigation of those areas which require us to go and find the missing links, and also the very important source material, contemporary references to this area where much was happening. The world was not sitting silent, much was happening, and that those were the volatile times. As the Roman and Kushan period connections were very deep. They have been trading and trading to the extent that where they had to be bringing in high material, larger area of work and trade and commerce, and the gold was the coin, and the standard currency was minted meticulously and perfectly, where the weights were very much correct and where the metal was pure. So, looking at the results which were there, we can presume that the high level of trade was there and it was linking the whole region. Now, then we go further beyond it, then we see that this enormous trade which was happening there, and which was then complemented by, as you earlier mentioned, that by the land routes, then all of a sudden gets disrupted. And this we can suspect uh, in our excavations, and we find the missing indications of the trade material at Bambo at the crucial time frame. 11th century early part, uh, the Mahmud Ghaznavi disrupted the land route, and we clearly find that there is a disconnect within the archaeological material at Bambor at that particular time frame. And then once we see that Fatimid are coming to power and they are more prominent, and the Red Sea trade route is activated more or so, and then we see that some of the material which is not coming from the Persian Gulf because of the peculiar disruption condition there, and we are having this Red Sea material available at the archaeological site. And then the typical pottery, the typical pottery which I call the luxury pottery, the pottery which was revered, the pottery which was respected, uh, and this was kept in house for the reasons other than the kitchen and other than the table. So this pottery is again indicative of a large uh, connection which was existing between this maritime region, which is the Indian Ocean.
Dr. Ibrahim, could you give us a sense of the work that you have done in Banbhore? You've worked extensively in the region, and what is it that your experience has been like?
Let me just give you a little brief about my work at Banbhore and how it started. When I joined the Department of Archaeology and Museums in the year 2000, no, sorry, it was 1990, long time back. So in 1990, I joined the department and I wanted to be archaeologist. And I was rejected by the department to join it because there were no ladies allowed to work in the field. So then came in Monique, and she was always keen to excavate at Bamboo. That was her lifetime dream. So she asked the director general that she wants to excavate at Bamboo. Our director general was very strict man, Dr. Ahmad Nabi Khan. I remember he had a long debate with her, and he said that initially you have to explore the area of Indus Delta, so go and document all the archaeological sites at Indus Delta, because Bambor is very, very important and very vital and precious site. So I won't let you excavate there just as the first site of yours in Pakistan. So that's how my project started, and I was allowed, after an authority letter given to the department, that if something wrong happens to me, then I will be responsible for myself. And I was allowed because she was a lady. So we started our excavations at Ratokot, which is a fortress near Bambor. It's about 4 hours drive from one of the port of Karachi. So we used to start at 4 a.m. and take a boat, ride for 4 hours, reach the Delta Fortress, and then come back. So we did that for one month, and it was a Sasanian fort. And then later we worked at Juna Shah Bandar and documented other fortresses. And then in this exploration, Dr. Lashari was also with us. So we did a lot of work for about 15 years, but still she couldn't excavate. And then later, like Professor Valeria told you, that we planned that we should take up Bambor for re-excavation. As we all know that Bambor was excavated from 1958 to 1965 by the Director General of Department of Archaeology. But the problem with the site was that it was not excavated scientifically, and there was no documentation done with the stratigraphic information. So that was kind of a very confusing 50-page pamphlet we had for Bamboo. So we always wanted to know more about this site because, of course, it was a huge site, and the museum shows us that how important material was lying in the museum. So we thought that at that time, Dr. Lashari was the Secretary of Antiquities. So me, Valeria, and Monique, we approached him for the license, and we got the license. He was the coordinator for the project. So our excavation documentation started in the year 2012, and then we started excavation. It was Italian, French, and Pakistani mission. So we had three different areas for excavation, and we started excavation scientifically, all these three trenches. The dream of Monique was to find the virgin soil or the rock. She always had this opinion that this is a rock and the fortress is built on the rock. So she was given the Hindu temple area and she was excavating
That is
there.
still an open problem.
Yes. So it's a very interesting. We three ladies, we had tough times together and good times also. So it was a three ladies mission, and we had three separate areas. So my area was near the mosque, and Valeria was towards the south. She had this bazaar. Later on, we came to know that there was another bazaar area and domes, castle domes. So that is how we all started working. So we worked together for about, I think, 4 years or so.
Professor Lashari, how has Banbhore changed over time? Are there certain features that have perhaps remained same? There must be some features which have changed. Could you perhaps talk about that a little bit?
The archaeological chemistry is very important that has to play its role. We have not yet made attention towards the material products which have been happening. Because you see, the site of Bambor is basically the area where the material for trade was brought in and then value was added there. So this was the fine tuning and finishing of most of the material which was traded was done in Bamboo. So we have to see that which were the products which were actually being finalized and completed at Bambor, and which were the material which was not done within this region, but it was coming from the other regions. Now, the things are when we talk about trade, normally it happens that you bring the material from farm to the market. So there it is consumed. But certain material which is of equally importance to all parts of society, when you use it at the farm as well as you use it in the towns. So this material can be from anywhere, whether it is being produced within this region or it is produced without this region, outside this region. Glass is such material. It is there to cater to your everyday needs. It is there to cater to your important needs. It is there to cater to your, medical needs. So in every way, the glass is important. So it is required everywhere. Now, if it is being made here in Bamboo, it is being made here in Mansoura, or it is being made somewhere else. So how to find out? So let us listen from Dr. Asma Ibrahim in this aspect.
Dr. Ibrahim, your work, a major chunk of your work has been on the artifacts that were found at the site. Could you perhaps walk us through what got you so interested in the artifacts, that particularly glass, which you've written about? Could you also perhaps tell us how it is that historical sources become important in your work? How do they play a role, and how do they help you understand the sites that you might be excavating? Perhaps some of the sites that you may have encountered. Did you find any information regarding those in certain other historical sources? So how do the disciplines of history and archaeology sort of come together in the work that you do?
My interest in the glass, how it started. I was with the department and I was posted in the exploration and excavation branch, about which a little bit Dr. Lashari told you. So I always was wondering that there was so much material in the storehouse rooms of not only exploration branch, but there were storerooms at the site of Bambor, and they were in a pretty, one can say, in a deplorable condition. The bags were turning and there were snakes and dark area. So I had a very small amount of about 50,000 rupees. So I thought that I should clean up the stores and document the material which we have in the bags. And it was a huge material of pottery. And then glass was with us in the exploration branch. That's how I got attracted to the glass. So we worked there for about a month, and we changed the bags and we redocumented the pottery. So then I was very curious that how to correlate this pottery with the strata of the site, which we didn't have. So for that, we had to re-excavate. That was the reason that we wanted to just trim the already excavated trenches to get the material and then relate it with the material which was already excavated, how to put it into certain time period. Although you could do the relative dating, but it was very important that we should do some scientific dating also. And nowadays, archaeology is a complete science. Without science, archaeology is nothing. So that was one of the things that we started the excavations. And then I was able to get pieces of glass, not from my range, but Monique had a lot of glass. And so I selected about 15 pieces and I worked with the Corning Museum of Glass. We sent it for analysis. And in Pakistan, I did the elemental analysis of glass. So it was silica based, of course, and but we couldn't find any what you say, kiln for the glass making. So that's another issue which we still haven't resolved. So the glass we analyzed was all made in Persia, and none of the pieces had the evidence that it was made in Bambor. So 15 pieces for a data compilation is nothing. I feel it's just next to zero. But whatever work we did was quite interesting. We could tell the chemical analysis of glass. And secondly, I worked on coins because my PhD is in coins. So I worked on the coins we discovered from Bombor. They were in very bad shape, not readable, but few signs could tell us that they were the same as we found in Multan also, early, like Umayyad period coins, but most they were all in copper. So not much could be written about them, but whatever preliminary report I could make, I have done that also. And on glass, I'm planning to work on glass further because we don't find big pieces of glass. That's another very intriguing thing. Only small pieces of glass are available, maybe for perfume bottles or little stuff. I don't know, but not a big piece of glass is there, not a cup or a plate or anything. So that's also very, very intriguing thing to look into, that why there was no big pieces of glass. So this is another thing which proves that this was maybe the perfume was imported from Far East and from Oman areas. And another thing about Oman is that I read a paper about pottery of Banbhore and the pottery in in Oman. So some of the pieces were exactly the same which we had in Oman. So it was unbelievable. It was the same pattern and the texture, everything. So that shows that they had very close links with Banbhore. Plus Persia, half of the glass bottle was found from Banbhore and half of it was found in Persia. The scholar Bob, he's now passed away, but who was working with me, he showed me half of the piece which he had in Corning Museum of Glass from Iran, and the half of the bottle was from Banbhore. So this site is very, very interesting, but I feel that not much, still we haven't done much. There is so much material and so much to do and so many aspects of the site which needs to be worked on, which needs our research work, and we should do the comparative studies with other countries where they were having trade connections. So in my opinion, as an archaeologist, I feel that we haven't done 10% of it also, because it's a huge site and huge amount of material is available for research for so many scholars, and they should be there. And plus, we found some skeletons also. There was a burial as well in on the site, which was also quite interesting. Although it was a Muslim burial, late period, but still, then metal needs to be worked on, pottery, glass, ivory. There was a factory of ivory which was discovered by the archaeological mission of Italy by Valeria, I think, few years back. And so many things we need to work on. So the Kufic calligraphy and the Kufic plates we have. I mean, you name it and it's there. The site is an ideal site for any archaeologist or a historian. So, in my opinion, I'm not at all satisfied that we have finished the work or we have reached up to some level. No, I think we need to do much, much more about it.
I'm not at all satisfied with with the work that has so far been carried out, because it is such an amazing site and so complex and difficult to study that it will take years and years and years. Or you can't have like this a miracle in your hands. No, even if you find a miracle, well, you have to study it very, very well and very much.
Professor Lashari, could you elaborate on perhaps the larger geographical historical context on why Bhambore is still relevant, or why has it been so central to for archaeological studies?
So that we are getting now into that area where we have to learn about things which are there. Asma was referring earlier to the skeletons, the study of skeletons. Asma has been involved in ancient DNA very recently. Very recently, the work is going on. This is an international collaboration. Now we can turn to the skeletons which were found from Banbhore as well. Workers were normally belonging to certain specialized area, the region wise. So the region was not only producing their particular material, but it was also loaning and sending across the craftsperson to work in certain areas. So this immigration is historically given in all details, and we have found it also archaeologically present. When we go to the more eastern side of Indian Ocean, we found that there are numerous colonies of the craftspersons which were actually going from the South Asia. And similarly, we have this particular proof of, as Valeria will testify, that the that every social or economic or political upheaval, there was much transference of human material, human resource to the regions which were adjacent and even quite far away. In recent past, you have seen that the earlier part of 20th century saw so many Chinese immigration happening in every part of world. Here in Karachi, we received quite handsome population also, as you see that they have been going to the New World, Brazil, United States. So these Chinese were moving, and then they were actually setting up their particular expertise, their workshops, their work, and then they were working on it. For example, the tea gardens. It is also one of their specialization, which moved to the New World as well. And during the Arab conquest, we have the historical narratives that the Arabs took the craftsperson in thousands from this region to Iraq. And likewise, you see, there has been people who were moving around, and this sort of work, the ancient DNA, is another important area, and which we fortunately we have Dr. Asma with us, and she is involved in this work, which is going on. We can extend this area of Banbhore to this realm as well. Besides that, the Valeria was very right in saying that the earlier excavation was actually very limited, and it was more or so on the citadel area, looking at the wall and inside the wall, as well as at some points outside the wall. But the important areas of the town itself, which has the three different kinds of population settled within the wall, we need to know the architectural differences and preferences between these three categories of people. As Valeria was very particular about finding many workshops concentrated in one particular side of the fortification, and then at other side we were able to have see the broader halls, palatial, as she says, sort of palatial buildings. So we need to focus on architecture as well. And this architecture, uh, when compared to the Seven and to the Mansura, will put us in some other advantageous position to have the understanding of the difference between Mansura, which was the sort of a capital city at that time, and the port town of Banbhore. So this differentiation will actually indicate the difference between the social stratas.
Could one of you perhaps also throw some light on the kind of artifacts that were excavated? What were the most important artifacts and what kinds did you find there?
I would say history through pottery, or pottery and history, but also glass and history.
Historical sources are, of course, very important, and they are the foundation for carrying out the archaeological work in most of the cases. So, about the underwater city, which we have discovered, which is about 12 kilometers inside the Indus Delta, and it appears on the surface only for 2 hours in the early morning, in the late dates of moon, where we have got two calligraphic inscriptions also, foliated Kufic. So that is another important place to work on and to further research, because it's under the water and we don't have access to it for most of the time. So that is another debate, that whether this was people and this was Banbhore. Plus, we have discovered one fortress of Alexander the Great, which I have published also. That's at the Gujo, which is another creek of Indus Delta. So we have evidence that Alexander divided his armies from that point, one towards land and one towards sea. So that's another classical age site we need to excavate and work further. It has a continuous occupation from Neolithic time periods up to the Muslim period. So we are planning that sometime maybe we can take it up. That's the only classical proven site we have with us in Sindh.
Thank you so much, Professor Valeria, Professor Lashari, and Professor Ibrahim. What a wonderful talk. You've given us such a wealth of information on Banbhore and the region. Thank you so much for walking us through your experiences and the work that you've done in the region. Some of the things that you mentioned during the talk, such as the DNA analysis, the scripts that you found in Greek and Latin, archaeochemistry, some of these ideas are absolutely fascinating, and we are very, very thankful to you for taking the time for this talk and for enlightening all of us about something that we've always heard of, something that we've read about, something that we've heard of in folk tales from Sindh, but have never actually seen it. And your talk today helped us visualize all of that. Thank you so much.
अजब उतर पार दे ताड़े की तवार अजब उतर पार दे ताड़े की तवार हार में हार न हर संभारा मुझा सरिया था संगार अज प मुझे यार वसण गावे सकिया अज प उतर पार दे ओ अज प उतर पार दे ककर तो कार करे अज प उतर पार दे ककर तो कार करे वसे तो वड पुड़ियो कालक खंड भरे विजण निशान वरे मुझ सकार सुख दिए हो तो के सिंधड़ी सारे हो तो के सिंधड़ी सारे